A pleasant day to everyone. My name is John Kenneth Ngabe, and I'm here to report the 1987 Constitution, or also known as the Philippine Constitution. So before we start, what is a constitution? So according to the late Jose Yusay, the term constitution particularly refers to a set of fundamental principles or established precedents, according to which a state or other organization is governed. On the other hand, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the basic principles and laws of a nation, state, or social group that determine the powers and duties of the government and guarantee certain rights to the people in it. So basically, the Constitution is a written set of rules by which a country, state, or organization is governed. So let's proceed. So the Philippine Constitution. So what is the Philippine Constitution again? So the Constitution of the Philippines, also called as the Saligang Batas ng Pilipinas, or as popularly known as the 1987 Constitution, is the Constitution or Supreme Law of the Republic of the Philippines, adopted on October 15, 1986, and ratified on February 2, 1987, under the administration of former President Corazon C. Aquino. Philippine constitutional law experts recognize three other previous constitutions as having effectively governed the country, namely the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the 1986 Freedom Constitution. So basically, the 1987 Philippine Constitution was modified from the previous constitution, or was created under the inspiration of other constitutions. So next, we are talking about the background of the 1987 Constitution. So what is the history behind the 1987 Constitution? So ruling by decree during the early months of her tenure as a president installed via the People Power Revolution, President Corazon Aquino was granted three options. So these three options was restore the 1935 Constitution, retain and make reforms to the 1973 Constitution, or pass a new Constitution. So, President Corazon Aquino decided to pass a new Constitution. And she decided to draft a new Constitution and issued Proclamation No. 3 on March 25, 1986, abrogating many of the provisions of the 1973 Constitution adopted during the Marcos regime, including the unicameral legislature and the office of the Prime Minister, and provisions which give the President legislative powers. In this Constitution, the Constitution drafted by former President Corazon C. Aquino was also called as the Freedom Constitution, in which this Constitution was intended as a transitional constitution to ensure democracy and the freedom of the people. The Freedom Constitution provided for an orderly transfer of power, while a constitutional commission was drafted a permanent constitution. So, in the 1987 Constitution, the Constitution established a representative democracy with power divided among three separate and independent branches of government, which is the executive, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. There were three independent constitutional commissions as well, which is the Commission on Audit, the Civil Service Commission, and the Commission on Elections. Integrated into the Constitution was a full Bill of Rights, which guaranteed fundamental civil and the political rights, and it provided for free, fair, and periodic elections. In comparison with the weak document that had given Marcos a legal fiction behind which to hide, this Constitution seemed ideal to many Filipinos emerging from 20 years of political repression and oppression. So basically, the 1987 Constitution was adopted to ensure or to prolong democracy. So as I already said, the primary consideration of the administration of the former President Corazon Aquino was to restore democracy and to rebuild democratic institutions. This objective underpinned the process for making the 1987 Constitution. It is important because it served as the framework and the basis of all other laws. Furthermore, it outlines the rights of the citizens and it protects us from unlawful persecutions even from our own government. So that is the purpose and how and why the 1987 Constitution was developed. So here we're talking about the executive branch, which is under the Philippine Constitution. So what is the executive branch? The executive branch is headed by the president in his appointed cabinet. The president is the head of the state and the chief executive, but he is subject to significant checks from other branches, especially in times of emergency, which given the history of the country was obviously intended to be a safeguard against a repeat of Marcos martial law despotism. For example, in cases of national emergency, the president can still declare martial law, but not for a period longer than 60 days. Congress can revoke this decision by a majority vote, or it can also extend it for the period of determined by the Congress. Additionally, the Supreme Court can review the declaration to decide if there was sufficient facts to justify martial law. The President can grant pardons and amnesty. He is also empowered to make or accept foreign laws. However, he cannot enter into treaties without the consent of the Senate. The President and Vice President are elected at large by a direct vote, but the President may only serve one 6-year term. The Cabinet, consisting of the President's advisors and heads of departments, is appointed by the President to assist him in his governmental functions. So next is the legislative branch. The legislative power is vested in a Congress which is divided into two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The 24 members of the Senate are elected at large by a popular vote and can serve no more than 2 consecutive 6-year terms. The House is composed of 250 elected members. Most of these representatives are elected by district for 3-year terms, but 20% of the total membership is chosen in proportion to party representation. Besides the exclusive power to legislate, one of the most important powers of Congress is the ability to declare war, which it can through a 2/3 vote in both houses. Even the power to legislate, however, is subject to an executive check. The President retains the power to veto. So what is the word veto? So veto is, in other words, is an exercise of authority, meaning the President can approve or disapprove a certain bill or a certain authority. So in this case, the President retains the power to veto a bill passed by both houses, and Congress may override this veto only with a 2/3 vote in both houses. So basically, the legislative branch is where the Senate are found. So basically, they are the ones that can approve or can disapprove, or they can approve the bill or the policy that the President is going to make. So next, so the judicial branch. So in this case, the court system in the Philippines exercises the judicial power of government, and it is made up of a Supreme Court and lower courts created by law. The Supreme Court is a 15-member court appointed by the President without need for confirmation by Congress. Appointment, however, is limited to a list of nominees presented to the President by a constitutionally specified judicial and bar council. This council consists of 7 members, which is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Secretary of Justice, a representative from Congress, a representative of the Integrated Bar, a professor of law, a retired member of Supreme Court, and a representative of the private sector. So the Supreme Court justices may hear on appeal any cases dealing with the constitutionality of any law, treaty, or decree of the government, cases where question of jurisdiction or judicial error are concerned, or cases where the penalty is sufficiently grave. It may also exercise original jurisdiction over cases involving government or international officials. The Supreme Court also is in charge with overseeing the functioning and the administration of the lower courts and their personnel. So basically, that is the job of the judicial branch. So next, we are talking about the government oversight bodies. So what are these government oversight bodies? The Constitution also establishes three independent constitutional commissions, which is the Civil Service Commission that acts as a central agency in charge of the government personnel. Next, the Commission on Elections, which enforces and administers all election laws and regulations to ensure that they are free and fair of all involved. Finally, the Commission on Audit examines all funds, transactions, and property accounts of the government and its agencies. So basically, the Civil Service or CSC or Civil Service Commission is where the government personnel is. Example of that is our teachers and any government personnel. The Commission of Elections is in charge of the elections, and the Commission of Audit, on the other hand, is in charge of the funds or where the funds is going. Okay, guys, so that's all about the entirety of the Philippine Constitution or the 1987 Constitution. And next, we will topic about the structure and contents that is still under the Philippine Constitution. So thank you guys for listening, and God bless.
Good day, I am Alan P. Laganga and my partner is Joshua Landong, and we will be tackling the preamble. So what is preamble? The preamble is derived from the Latin word preambulus, which is loosely translated to mean walking before. To clear it up for you guys, this does not imply that it refers to a living or a walking document. Walking before suggests that it appears before something, frequently elaborating on what will happen or what is to come. It could also be defined as introductory in Filipino language, which is panimula, and expressionary or pagpapahayag, meaning in this case it is introducing an important document, so to speak. Okay, the question is it really necessary to know the preamble? Yes. Preamble may not be a source of rights or a part of the Constitution, but it may certainly be used as a guide when determining the goals or objectives of the constitutions, and it also tells the author and the general purposes of the Constitution. As what I have said earlier, it is an introduction of the Constitution. So this is Dean Vicente Cinco. In 1958, the preamble, according to him, performs a vital function in a constitution. Its value is not merely formal but real and substantive. It is to the Constitution what the enacting clause is to a statute. The authenticity of the authorship of this Constitution is made patent in the preamble. Without this, or something equivalent to it, the source of authority that gives valid force to the constitutional mandates may lie concealed, perhaps left to the dangers of uncertain conjectures. So it means thou that the preamble is what marks the authority as the convection of the Constitution. Its existence serves as an introduction to the Constitution, but its auth, or what we call panunumpa in the Filipino language, states the general purpose of the Constitution itself in order to clarify the various interpretations of these constitutions. Now we know what this preamble is, so I'm going to show you the preamble of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. It is stated that this is one of the world's longest preambles. It tells us the values, ideals, and aspirations of the Filipino people. So let's read this preamble. We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God, in order to build a just and humane society, and establish a government that shall embody our ideals and aspirations, promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of independence and democracy, under the rule of law and a regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. Do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. So that's the preamble of the 1987 Philippine Constitutions. So let's discuss this preamble and explain each phrase. In preamble, guys, there were changes in preamble. There are words were added and amended. The latest preamble starts with the word we, the sovereign Filipino people. Emphasize that all Philippine constitutions derive their authority from the Filipino people, who are the source of the constitutions. It also states that the Filipino rulers are the supreme rule of this kind. So that's the end of my discussion. Now, let's move on to Joshua Landong, who will continue this explanation.
Thank you for that, Miss Allen, for your wonderful explanation about the preamble. And now, I am Joshua M. Landong, who will continue to explain further the content of the preamble. In the phrase imploring the aid of Almighty God, in the preamble of 1973 Constitution, it was asked for the aid of divine providence. Now, in the latest preamble, it is imploring the aid of Almighty God to make it direct and personal. By mentioning God, we recognize the elevating influence of religion in human society. Filipinos are intensely religious people, and we acknowledge God as the source of authority. In order to build a just and humane society, our new preamble not only mentions the establishment of the government, but also provides for building a nation that is just and humane. In our society, every individual, regardless of their economic status, should be treated fairly. To sum it up, it promotes the ideal of respecting the ideal rights to fairness deserved by all people. A just and humane society refers to a society in which all individuals have equal opportunity to succeed in life. Establishing a government. We need an ideal government, which a government must be accountable to, which we can say in the Filipino language, maasahan, or a people who can be trusted, which is transparent, efficient, and responsible for the needs of the people. We have more aspirations. A man inspires to be happy. Now, we need to satisfy our needs and aspiration as citizen of the government. Aspirations symbolize the dreams of Filipinos. Fourth, from the general welfare, it became the common good. When we say general welfare, it means ikakabuti ng nakakarami, while common good means ikakabuti ng lahat. According to Plato, a philosopher, a common good is anything that promotes social harmony, cooperation, and friendship among citizens. The present preamble now uses the term common good because all the efforts and rules of the government should be for the welfare of all people without exceptions. It was the patrimony of the nation, but it has now become our patrimony to make it more emphatic and to attract special attention. And it was amended and changed by Noliedo. The words Blessings of Independence and Democracy and in Mondo Garcia Amendment underscore the importance of true independence even in the presence of democratic beliefs and practices. Moreover, independence is also emphasized that we are a free nation because we don't owe our nation to other countries. Let's first identify the words that were added in the new preamble, such as the rule of law, means that no one, not even the government, is above the law. Truth was added to emphasize the need for transparency and honesty of public officials. Last, love was added because without love, the divisions in our society would not be overcome. In the face, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of independence and democracy, under the rule of law and regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. The point of this phrase in the preamble as a whole is to protect the country's hard-earned rights to independence. To ordain and promulgate this Constitution. The word ordain means regulate and establish, while promulgate means to promote. This phrase perhaps has a powerful statement. It says that the Filipino people made the Constitution and it is the people who give it power. Preamble, again, it is not a law. Instead, it talks about the reason for writing this Constitution and what they hope the Constitution will do. So, that's the end of our presentation, guys. And now, we will proceed to the other reporter.